Hello everybody, I'm Ajit K. Mishra, your course instructor for Essential Life Skills. I'm here again with a new session on thinking skills. In this session, you'll learn about different types of thinking and how we can improve some great thinking skills in ourselves. There are a few very important thinking types, and it's important that we all know these thinking types. There are, in fact, 7 most common types of thinking: creative thinking, analytical thinking, critical thinking, concrete thinking, abstract thinking, divergent thinking, and convergent thinking. So these are some of the most important thinking skills, 7 of them, that we generally come across whenever there is any discussion, any talk about important thinking skills. Let's take a look at each of these thinking skills in short, so that we get to know how important each of these thinking skills are, how different they are from each other, and how can we think of combining them to create a good thinking approach or thinking strategy. Let's start with the first one, that is creative thinking. Creative thinking is synonymous with thinking outside the box, that is indifference or even divergent thinking at certain times. So it's thinking outside the box. That means bringing in a completely new dimension to how we think. So it is the ability to push past established thoughts, theories, rules, and procedures. So creative thinking is all about going beyond the established approaches, the established practices of thinking. In turn, creative thinking enables us to conceive new and innovative ideas by looking at them from a completely different perspective. That means we may look at a thing, and if we can derive a completely new perspective, a perspective that no one has ever thought about, we are probably doing creative thinking. We are probably doing out-of-the-box thinking. The second is analytical thinking. Those who think analytically have a structured and methodical way of approaching tasks. If I'm an analytical thinker, I'll always adopt a very structured and methodological approach to all my thinking tasks. That means I'll be very, very meticulous, very strict, very disciplined in my approach to that particular task. So these are the thinkers who have the ability to take something that's whole and separate it into its basic parts, and then begin to examine the basic parts. Before they can understand the whole, they try to understand the basic parts and their functions, their roles, their importance, by focusing on each of those segments, each of those basic parts. And that's the reason why such thinking helps a great deal in problem-solving tasks. Because in order to solve any problem, it's very, very important that we go to the root cause of that problem. The third important thinking type is critical thinking. We all are familiar with this type of thinking because this is one of the most important thinking types. When it comes to critical thinking, we exercise careful evaluation or judgment. Critical thinking allows us to determine the authenticity, accuracy, worth, and validity of something. Because we are critically approaching something, we are not taking it on its face value. We are not allowing ourselves to be influenced, to be overwhelmed. Rather, we are adopting a very sound judgment, critical judgment. Rather than strictly breaking down information into parts, something that is done by the analytical thinkers, critical thinkers explore other elements that could impact the conclusions. They explore the other elements that can impact the conclusions. So unlike analytical thinkers who break a thing down to its components, basic parts or basic components. The next is concrete thinking. For a concrete thinker, it's about practical thinking only, nothing else. It's all about practical thinking. Very, very pragmatic in their approach. Concrete thinkers always think to the point. And they always iterate. And that's how they approach the problems, the questions. So such thinkers mainly focus on what is in front of them, but not so much on what's beyond their viewpoint. That hardly matters to them. Unlike critical thinkers who also take care of the things that is beyond their viewpoint. Concrete thinkers focus on what is right in front of them. The next one is abstract thinking, which is again a very important thinking type. An abstract thinker is able to relate seemingly random things with each other and make the connections others find difficult to see. While others may find it difficult to see the connections, an abstract thinker can always see those connections, even among seemingly random things. What is the strength of the abstract thinkers? So they actually can see the hidden meanings behind things and relate them to other items, events, or even experiences. So such thinkers usually observe things as theories or possibilities. And they are often curious how everything relates to the bigger picture. So the abstract thinkers play a very, very important role, or abstract thinking is a very important type of thinking because it allows us to see the big picture from the small to the big. So they can always see the connection between random things. That's the power of abstract thinking. And then we come to divergent thinking. So divergent thinkers take the path of exploring an infinite number of solutions to find one that is the most effective. That means they can always come up with a lot of solutions to one particular problem. So instead of starting off with a set number of possibilities, such thinkers, they generally go as far as possible to find more and more solutions. An example of divergent thinking is taking up a pile of blocks and using them to create as many designs as one can. That brings us to convergent thinking. So convergent thinking allows us to focus on finding one well-defined outcome, unlike divergent thinking that gives us multiple possibilities from which we pick one. Convergent thinking generally takes us towards just one solution, nothing else. So such thinkers generally target these possibilities or converge them inwards to come up with a solution to a problem. Just one solution to one problem. So the approach is inward, narrowed. In divergent thinking, it is outward. It is far more wider. An example can be multiple choice tests, quizzes, standardized tests and spelling tests, which require that we use convergent thinking because we cannot go for more than one answer to any of these questions, because these questions will always have just one answer. So convergent thinking helps us find the right answer. Otherwise, we may end up finding multiple answers and we cannot use those answers. The next important thing that I want to walk you through is how to improve our thinking skills. Now that we know there are various thinking types, we have also come to know that thinking skills are very, very important, because that's an important life skill. It's important that we understand how we can improve our thinking skills. There are several methods proposed by theorists and trainers, coaches. I have picked a very interesting method that has been proposed by a very famous brain coach, Jim Kwik. That method is called FAST method, F-A-S-T, FAST method of improving thinking skills. Jim Kwik has developed that particular method. So what is FAST, by the way? The acronym stands for forget, active, state and teach. Let's see what F of forget stands for. People don't generally learn faster because they feel like their cup is full. This is a statement issued by Jim Kwik, the originator of this method. And he's very rightly said so, because we most often think that our cup is full. We know a lot of things, and there is absolutely no need for us to stretch our learning any further. It is difficult for most of us to let go the old beliefs and capture the new ones, because we all think that we are doing well with the old beliefs and there is no need to capture new ideas and new ones. And that's the reason why the apps that we have in our minds do not get updated. So the way we allow our mobile phone apps to get updated, it is important that we also get these brain apps get updated. So that is forgetting, and that will happen only when we begin to forget the past. We begin to forget the things that have become irrelevant now. The second step is the active step. So our brain doesn't learn through consumption, it learns through creation, and we all know that. And there is absolutely a need for avoiding the boredom caveat, because most often we do not adopt an active approach to our learning experiences. We generally go ahead with a passive approach. Whenever that happens, the brain begins to sleep. It doesn't allow us to learn things. It doesn't allow us to take new things, important things in and process them for further application. The third important step is the state. Information, according to Jim Kwik, when combined with emotion, leads to long-term memory. So it has been found that when we combine information with emotion, we can retain that piece of information for a long, long time. So when an event involves emotions, our brain considers it important and thus remembers it for a long time. The result, we can easily recall every detail of that experience. Just imagine the first time you received a salary, your first salary. What did you do with that? How you felt? You can always recall your experiences of that particular day, that particular moment. But thereafter you kept receiving your salary every month, but you may not be able to recall all the details involved or related to the salaries you received thereafter. Since the receiving of the first salary has been combined with a certain emotion, you can recall almost every detail of it. The next step is the T step, that is the teach step. When we teach something, we get to learn it twice. And that's the reason why teachers are very, very privileged, because they get to teach everything. So they are the best type of learners because they get to learn it twice. So that's very, very important. Whatever we learn, it is important that we teach that to somebody, so that we relearn it, we learn it again, and we reaffirm and strengthen our learning. It's almost like, if you show someone how to wash their hands, your hand will end up clean as well, because you also learn how to wash your hands. With that, we come to the end of this session. If you can recall, I talked about different types of thinking skills, and I briefly introduced each of those thinking skills to you. And I also talked about how we can improve the thinking skills with a very important method developed by Jim Kwik, the brain coach. I'm sure you have taken note of all these things and you're going to explore these things yet further. I'll meet you again with a new session the next time. Bye-bye.